I'm Michael Day, a teacher, nature photographer, and traveler. This video is about cruising, exploring, and photographing the Mekong River in Vietnam and Cambodia. If you'd like to see other videos, hit the subscribe button in the lower right hand corner. At the end of the video, there'll be information about my blog and how to contact me. Thanks for watching.
For many of us baby boomers who grew up in the U.S. during the mid-1960s and early 1970s, the Mekong is a strange, frightening, and mysterious river associated with the Vietnam War, what the Vietnamese commonly call the American War, and with the 1979 American epic war film Apocalypse Now. But the Mekong River visited today is so much more, steeped in history, settlements, conquests, and ingenuity. The world's 12th or 10th longest river, depending on who you look at, over 2,300 or 2,700 miles in length. The source of the Mekong is on the Tibetan Plateau. It flows south through China to Vietnam, where it empties into the South China Sea. The first successful exploration of the river occurred in the mid-1860s from the Mekong Delta in the south to Yunnan in the north, located today in the Southwest Republic of China. After a harrowing 2-year struggle with the river, the chief finding of its French explorers was that the Mekong had too many falls and rapids to ever be useful for general navigation. The expedition is nicely covered in Milton Osborne's 2000 publication, The Mekong, Turbulent Past, Uncertain Future. Today, visitors tend to explore small sections of the river. Susan and I did a few years back. We booked a week-long cruise up the Mekong River from Mai Dao in Vietnam, north to Kampong Cham in Cambodia, roughly 150 miles. Along the way, we surveyed the banks of the river in skiffs, made numerous visits to local villages, explored the Tonle Sap River, and spent a day visiting Phnom Penh. Our ship was the award-winning Aqua Mekong. Built in 2014, the Aqua, with 20 rooms and a capacity for 40 guests, is a small luxury cruise ship with an outstanding staff. Half of our guides were Vietnamese, half Cambodian. The Aqua Mekong is one of 3 vessels operated by Aqua Expeditions, a company founded in 2007, cruising 3 different rivers. A few years after our cruise on the Aqua Mekong, Susan and I booked another adventure with Aqua Expeditions, this time to Peru, on the Amazon River, with the Eerily. During our week-long cruise up the Mekong, we spent 5 days exploring life on the river, 2 days in Vietnam and 3 days in Cambodia. We also spent a day exploring Phnom Penh, capital city and royal palace of the Kingdom of Cambodia. Our voyage began after a 90-minute bus ride from Saigon, or today Ho Chi Minh City, southwest toward the Mekong Delta and Mai Dao, where we boarded the Aqua Mekong and got our first view of the expansive Mekong River. It was late afternoon. After a bit of socializing with other passengers, we were welcomed by crew and guides, entertained by musicians playing traditional Vietnamese instruments, and provided an overview of what to expect on board the Aqua. Over the next few days, while still in Vietnam, we visited the villages of Vien Thanh and Mai An Hong and the city of Chau Doc. We also observed life along the Mekong, where bridges are few, ferry crossings many, small flat-bottom wooden boats called sampans glide through the water, fish farms, recessed villages, high banks, and where creative modifications especially to houses, are found. Due to the annual flooding each year, caused by monsoon rains between August and November, houses are designed either to float on or built on stilts to rise above the water. At Bintan Island, we were introduced to the charm, reverence for the Buddha, smiling children, and the crafts produced in villages along the Mekong. Bintan is especially identified with reed mat weaving and a lovely little Buddhist temple. At Mae Hung, we experienced our first monkey bridge, a simple structure allowing villagers to cross inlets and rivers on handmade walkways. We were also treated to a buffet of fresh, delicious fruits, entertained by hosts, and introduced to the unicorn dance, meant to bring us good luck and good fortune. The dance featured 3 performers, 2 young acrobatic dancers operating the head and hind legs of the unicorn, and another, depicted as a large-bellied, broadly grinning man who seemed to guide and provide direction for the playful unicorn. The dance was great fun. I'm hoping video from the unicorn dance brings good luck and good fortune to viewers of this video as well. Our second full day on the Mekong was spent in and around Chao Doc, close to the border with Cambodia. Entering Chao Doc, we spent a fascinating period exploring a floating market. And a city tour on cycle rickshaws, where we visited a town market. We concluded our visit to Chao Doc with a bus ride to the top of Sam Mountain, one of the higher points along the river, with lovely views, and where we observed a Buddhist ceremony at a lovely Buddha pagoda. By the beginning of our third day on the Mekong, we had entered Cambodia and spent part of the day exploring the village of Kodak, both on bicycle and on motorbike tuk-tuks. Kodak is located just a few miles north of Phnom Penh. Here we were captivated by the art and architecture of an exquisite Buddhist temple. And by a tour of Silk Island, where delicate silk weaving is still practiced on handmade wooden looms. First introduced into Cambodia in the 1200s, visitors can still observe the age-old tradition of silk weaving from the care and nurturing of silkworms to the spinning of yarn and working of looms. Our fourth day was spent visiting Phnom Penh. As capital city and home to the royal palace, Phnom Penh has many attractions and lots of history. Touring the city on a motorbike, tuk-tuk, and visiting the grounds of the royal residence of the King of Cambodia was a real treat. But Phnom Penh's past has dark blemishes as well. Between 1975 and 1979, it was also home to the Khmer Rouge, a highly autocratic, xenophobic, and repressive regime, responsible for the deaths of nearly 2 million people, around 25% of Cambodia's total population at the time. We visited the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum, where, from 1976 to the fall of the Khmer Rouge regime in 1979, Security Prison 21 was located. In just 3 years, an estimated 20,000 people were imprisoned, tortured, and executed at the prison. Only a dozen survived, including Chu Mei, who I met at the Genocide Museum. Interestingly, Phnom Penh is located at the intersection of two rivers, the Mekong and the Tonle Sap. Generally, the Tonle Sap River is fed by Tonle Sap Lake, 75 miles away to the northwest. It is on and near Tonle Sap Lake the story about the Khmer Empire and its famous temples at Angkor Wat takes place, which is a subject for another YouTube video. It is also near the intersection of these two rivers that each year a fascinating phenomenon occurs. The flow of the water on the Tonle Sap River changes direction. During the rainy season mentioned earlier, generally August to November, the Mekong River reverses its flow into Tonle Sap Lake, pushing excess water up the Tonle Sap River, flooding the surrounding low plains and swelling the lake. Our Mekong visit was planned to coincide with the end of the rains and to follow the expanded Tonle Sap River north to the lake. But the depth of the river had already begun to recede, its flow returning to a southerly direction, so we were only able to cruise as far as Kampong Chang, the village of pottery. Our visit began with a beautiful sunrise. Awakening on the Tonle Sap River was quite different than awakening on the massive Mekong. The river is more intimate, at least during our visit, relaxed, colorful, calming. We toured Pottery Village on motorbike tuk-tuks, where we both observed the delightful craft of pottery making, as well as the art of palm wine production, capturing the sap from palm trees to fermentation to sampling. Delicious. Our tuk-tuk then briefly toured the countryside, where we observed rich golden rice fields and harvesting. Our plan to continue north to Tonle Sap Lake, thwarted by the lowering of the river, we turned south and spent the afternoon visiting the quaint craft village of Cochin, where in small home workshops, shaping and engraving bronze and silver occurs. We also strode the grounds of another lovely Buddhist temple and watched smiling children play. Our last day on the Mekong was a full one, traveling north to the small town of Kampong Cham and Wat Henche. From Phnom Penh, Kampong Cham is located about 50 miles up the Mekong River. Wat Henche, located another dozen miles to the north. Morning and evening were spent around Kampong Cham, home to one of the few bridges crossing the Mekong, and the first built in Cambodia. We began the day with a bike hike along the banks of one of the numerous villages that lined the river. After a brief visit to a small brick factory, where the process of local brick making was explained and displayed, we traveled a mile or so to experience another home industry, this time to observe the dyeing of reeds for mat and basket weaving using natural dyes. Later that morning, the Aqua Mekong made its way north to one of the major religious and cultural sites in Cambodia, Wat Henche. This expansive complex, constructed on a hill with gorgeous views of the Mekong below, includes both Hindu and Buddhist temples, dating back to the 7th and 8th centuries. Visitors and pilgrims to this holy site ascend a stairway of 290 steps to a series of ancient temples, often guided by local children. Wat Henche is also home to a school for young monks. Returning to Kampong Cham early afternoon, we concluded our Mekong journey with visits to Norco Bache, to the mountaintop of Phnom Pros, and to the longest spanning bamboo bridge in the world. First, we stopped at the historic temple of Norco Bache, initially built as a Hindu temple in the 11th century, modified a century later by the most remembered Khmer Empire king, Jayavarman VII, to celebrate the life of the Buddha. Seemingly, it remains a popular spot for wedding photographers. The temples also provide a sense of what's to come for travelers planning to visit Angkor Wat, not far from Tonle Sap Lake and the town of Siem Reap, further to the north. Next, we visited the sacred mountain of Phnom Pros, or Min's Hill, boasting a lovely pagoda, which increases its overall summit to just enough to become nearly as high as another sacred mountain nearby, Phnom Shre, Women's Hill. We relaxed a bit from our long day, strolling some beautiful gardens and watching monkeys entertaining themselves and visitors. Finally, we arrived just in time to observe the annual construction of the Kopan Bamboo Bridge, over a half a mile in length, providing a crossing for cars and pedestrians when water levels fall and become too low for a ferry to cross. Each year, when the water level of the Mekong rises due to the before-mentioned monsoon rains, the river swells and this temporary bamboo bridge is destroyed, only to be reconstructed again once the rains stop, usually sometime in November. That's our video. This voyage up the Mekong aboard the Aqua was a grand opportunity, a fascinating adventure, and a trip that expanded and enhanced my previous associations with Vietnam and Cambodia developed in the mid-1960s and early 1970s. If you saw a photo you liked and wish a copy, visit my blog at michael-day.org, where you can contact me. The blog address may also be a useful site for those who would like to further examine the link between adult education, wonder, curiosity, adventure, and travel. Happy travels.